November 7th, 2020, 1847 hours, undisclosed location. 8 people sit in a secure facility buried 3 stories underground. Computer screens glow in the darkness. Lines of code scroll past, faster than human eyes can read. The air conditioning hums, keeping the servers cool. Outside this room, the world continues normally. Inside, a war is being fought that could end civilization. 4 hours ago, the National Security Agency detected an intrusion in the control systems of a nuclear power plant. Not just any power plant, one of the largest in Eastern Europe, providing electricity to 15 million people. The hackers weren't stealing data. They weren't making demands. They were methodically taking control of the reactor's safety systems. 3 hours ago, intelligence confirmed the attacker's identity, a state-sponsored Advanced Persistent Threat Group. Military-grade hackers backed by a hostile nation. Their mission: cause a nuclear meltdown, create a Chernobyl-level catastrophe, kill hundreds of thousands, contaminate an entire region, and make it look like an accident. 2 hours ago, diplomatic channels tried to intervene. They were ignored. Military options were considered and rejected. You can't bomb hackers sitting in another country without starting a war. The only option left was to fight fire with fire. Hackers versus hackers. Digital warriors in a battlefield made of code. 1 hour ago, 8 of the world's best cyber operators were activated. Former NSA analysts, military intelligence officers, white hat hackers recruited from the private sector. They have 48 hours to stop a nuclear catastrophe. 48 hours to trace the attackers, penetrate their systems, and shut them down before they can complete their mission. This is Operation Cyber Shield, the most classified cyber warfare operation in history. A battle fought not with bullets and bombs, but with algorithms and exploits. And a race against time where failure means radiation, death for millions. The team leader was a former NSA operative, codename Oracle. 15 years of cyber operations. She had hunted terrorists through the dark web, dismantled criminal networks, and defended critical infrastructure from countless attacks. But she had never faced anything like this. "Listen up," she addressed the team. "We're dealing with Unit 7-4455, Russian Military Intelligence Cyber Division. These aren't script kiddies. They're professionals with unlimited resources and state backing. They've been inside the power plant systems for at least 3 weeks, mapping everything, learning the procedures, preparing for this moment." She pulled up a diagram on the main screen. The plant has multiple redundant safety systems. The attackers are disabling them one by one. Cooling systems, emergency shutdown protocols, radiation monitors. Once they control all the safety systems, they'll push the reactor into a critical state. The fuel rods will overheat, the core will melt down, and there's nothing the plant operators can do to stop it because their controls won't work. One of the younger operators asked, "How long until meltdown?" "Current estimate, 48 hours, maybe less if they accelerate. We need to kick them out of the system, restore operator control, and close all the back doors they've planted. And we need to do it without them realizing we're there until it's too late. If they know we're coming, they'll trigger the meltdown immediately." Another operator, Cypher, a former Marine Corps cyber warfare specialist, spoke up. "So we're fighting a defensive and offensive battle simultaneously. Defend the plant while attacking their command infrastructure. We'll need to split into 2 teams." Oracle nodded. "Exactly. Team Alpha. 4 operators. You're on defense. Get into the plant systems without alerting the attackers. Map what they've compromised. Start quietly restoring safety protocols. Team Bravo, 4 operators. You're on offense. Find Unit 74455's command servers. Penetrate their network. When I give the signal, you take them down hard." The teams moved to their stations. Multiple monitors per operator. Custom software designed for cyber warfare. Tools that officially don't exist. Capabilities that can never be discussed publicly. At 1900 hours, The operation began. Team Alpha's first challenge was getting into the power plant's network without triggering alarms. The Russian hackers had set up digital tripwires. If anyone tried to access the system through normal channels, they would know immediately and trigger the meltdown. "We need a ghost entry," said Shadow, Team Alpha's infiltration specialist. "Get in through a vector they're not monitoring." She found it in an overlooked maintenance interface, a diagnostic system used by third-party contractors to check equipment. It had minimal security because it wasn't supposed to be connected to the main network. But everything is connected eventually. Shadow traced the connections until she found a path into the reactor control systems. "I'm in, moving carefully. If I trigger any alerts, we're done." She navigated through the network like a surgeon performing brain surgery. One wrong command, and the patient dies. She could see the Russian malware everywhere, pieces of code lurking in the systems, waiting to execute. It was sophisticated, elegant, terrifying. "Oracle, I'm seeing the architecture of their attack. They've created a cascading failure protocol. When they send the trigger command, everything fails simultaneously. Cooling pumps, emergency vents, shutdown mechanisms. It's designed to create a scenario where even if operators realize what's happening, they can't stop it. Can you disable it? Not without them noticing. The malware is monitoring itself. If I delete it, that triggers the attack. If I modify it, that triggers the attack. It's a digital dead man switch." Oracle processed this. They couldn't remove the malware without triggering Catastrophe, but they couldn't leave it there either. "Then we don't remove it. We isolate it. Build a virtual cage around their code, so when they send the trigger command, it never reaches the actual systems." That's incredibly difficult. We're talking about rewriting core control systems in real time while hostile actors watch the network. One mistake and... "I know, but it's the only play we have. Start building the cage." Meanwhile, Team Bravo was hunting Unit 74455's command infrastructure. This was the offensive mission. Find the attackers and destroy their ability to wage cyber war. Cypher led Team Bravo with aggressive determination. He had spent 5 years in Marine Corps cyber operations, and he approached hacking the same way he'd approached combat, with overwhelming force and tactical precision. They're operating from somewhere in Russia, probably St. Petersburg, where Unit 74455 is based. But they're routing through multiple proxy servers to hide their location. We need to trace back through the network. His teammate, Wraith, a former black hat hacker who'd been recruited instead of prosecuted, smiled. "I love a good hunt. Let's follow the breadcrumbs." They started with the malware itself. Every piece of code has a signature, ways of being written that are unique to the programmer, like fingerprints. Wraith analyzed the nuclear plant malware and identified coding patterns that matched previous Unit 74455 operations. "Got it. They've used these exact same techniques in 3 prior attacks. I can trace where those attacks were coordinated from." The trail led through servers in 6 countries, each hop designed to throw off pursuers. But Wraith was patient and methodical. He followed the connections, exploited vulnerabilities, and slowly worked backward through the network. Would you volunteer for a mission with 5% survival rate? Comment yes or no. After 3 hours, he found something. "Oracle, I've got eyes on their command server. They're running operations out of a facility in St. Petersburg. Multiple operators active right now. I can see their communications, their targets, everything. Can you get inside their network?" "Working on it. They've got serious security, military-grade firewalls, intrusion detection. This isn't going to be subtle." "Then don't be subtle. We're past the point of stealth. But wait for my signal. We take them down all at once, their command capability and their malware simultaneously." Hour 6. Team Alpha was making progress on the isolation cage, but it was painstaking work. Shadow had to essentially rebuild the plant's control systems around the Russian malware without the malware detecting the changes. "It's like building a ship in a bottle," she muttered, "while someone watches through the glass, and the bottle is full of explosives." Her teammate, Ghost, a former NSA analyst, was mapping every piece of Russian malware in the system. "I count 47 separate pieces of hostile code. They're distributed throughout the network. Even if we cage the main attack logic, these other pieces could still cause problems. Tag them all. When we move on everything simultaneously." Hour 10. Cypher and Wraith had penetrated the outer layers of Unit 7, 4455's network. But the deeper they went, the more resistance they encountered. "They know someone's probing them," Wraith reported. "They're strengthening defenses, moving data. They suspect they're being watched." Oracle made a decision. Accelerate the timeline. If they realize we're inside their network, they might trigger the meltdown early. Team Alpha, how long until you can execute? "Need at least 6 more hours to finish the isolation cage." "You've got 4. Make it work." Hour 14. Team Alpha was racing against the clock. Shadow's fingers flew across the keyboard, writing code faster than most people could type. Ghost was coordinating with the power plant's IT staff, who still didn't know about the Russian infiltration, feeding them urgent software updates that were actually the isolation cage components. "We're at 60% completion," Shadow reported, "but I'm seeing increased activity from the Russian malware. It's like it knows something's wrong." "That's because Unit 74455 is getting nervous," Oracle said. "Team Bravo is making them paranoid. They're running diagnostics on their attack tools. We need to move faster." Hour 18. A critical moment. One of the Russian operators in St. Petersburg noticed anomalous activity in the nuclear plant network. Something wasn't right. He couldn't identify exactly what, but his instincts told him they'd been compromised. Team Bravo saw him in real time through their penetration of Unit 74455 systems. They watched as he typed a message to his supervisor. "Possible compromise detected. Recommend accelerating operation timeline." "Oracle, they're going to trigger early," Cypher warned. "How long do we have?" "Minutes, maybe an hour if we're lucky." Oracle's mind raced. Team Alpha needed 4 more hours, but they didn't have 4 hours. They had minutes. She needed a new plan. "Team Bravo, can you delay them? Make them think the anomaly was a false alarm?" Wraith grinned. "I can do better than that. I can make them think we're someone else." He launched a sophisticated deception operation. Using tools from the NSA's cyber arsenal, he made it appear that Chinese hackers were probing Unit 74455's network. Not Americans. Not anyone investigating the nuclear plant operation. Just routine Chinese cyber espionage that Unit 74455 dealt with constantly. The Russian supervisor bought it. Probably just the usual Chinese fishing expedition. Increase security but maintain the schedule. Team Alpha had bought more time, but not much. Hour 22. Shadow was exhausted, but pushed through. The isolation cage was 85% complete. Just a few more critical components. Then disaster. A power fluctuation at the nuclear plant caused a momentary network disruption. Just 3 seconds. But 3 seconds where the isolation cage components were visible to the Russian malware. Alarms went off in St. Petersburg. Unit 74455 realized they were under attack. They knew American cyber operators were in the system, and they made their decision. Trigger the meltdown now, before the Americans could stop them. "They're executing," Ghost shouted. "The attack is launching." 47 pieces of Russian malware activated simultaneously. Commands flooded the nuclear plant's control systems. Cooling pumps began shutting down. Emergency protocols were disabled. The reactor started climbing toward critical temperature, but Team Alpha was ready. The isolation cage wasn't perfect, only 85% complete, but it was functional. Most of the malicious commands hit the cage and died, but some got through. "We're losing cooling on Sector 3, a plant operator radioed, panic in his voice. "Temperature climbing." Shadow, can you route cooling from another sector? Working on it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She couldn't stop the attack directly. That would take too long. But she could work around it. Reroute systems. Engage backups that the Russians didn't know existed. Keep the reactor stable while she finished building the cage. At the same time, Team Bravo launched their assault on Unit 7, 4455's command infrastructure. This was no longer about stealth. This was about destruction. Cypher unleashed a series of zero-day exploits, vulnerabilities in software that no one except the NSA knew about. They crashed through Unit 74455's firewalls like a battering ram through paper. We're in their network, deploying payloads now. The payloads were digital weapons designed to destroy. They corrupted data, crashed servers, deleted backups, wiped hard drives. Within minutes, Unit 74455's entire cyber warfare capability was burning to the ground. Russian operators watched in horror as their systems died around them. They tried to fight back, to salvage something, but Team Bravo was relentless. Every countermeasure was met with overwhelming force. Their command server is down, secondary server is down. They're blind and deaf. With Unit 74,455 neutralized, Team Alpha could focus entirely on the nuclear plant. Shadow finished the isolation cage and then started actively removing the Russian malware. Without their command structure, the malware couldn't coordinate, couldn't adapt. It could only die. One by one, the 47 pieces of hostile code were deleted. Control was restored to plant operators. Cooling systems came back online. The reactor temperature stopped climbing and began to decrease. Hour 28. Oracle received confirmation from the power plant. All systems nominal, reactor stable, crisis averted. The room erupted in exhausted cheers. They had done it. 8 operators had stopped a nuclear catastrophe, but Oracle wasn't celebrating yet. Team Bravo, make sure Unit 74455 stays down. I want every server destroyed, every backup wiped, every operator system compromised. They tried to kill millions of people. I want their cyber warfare capability set back 10 years. With pleasure, Cypher replied. This is what true heroism looks like. Hit like if you agree. For the next 20 hours, Team Bravo systematically destroyed Unit 74455's infrastructure. They didn't just remove the nuclear plant malware. They found every operation Unit 74455 was running. Attacks on power grids, water systems, hospitals, financial networks. And they burned them all down. They left digital calling cards, messages for the Russian operators. You tried to cause a nuclear disaster. This is the consequence. Every attack you launch, we will stop. Every system you compromise, we will restore. You cannot win this war. By hour 48, when Operation Cyber Shield officially concluded, Unit 74455 was effectively destroyed as a cyber threat. Their servers were slag. Their data was gone. Their operators' identities were compromised and shared with international law enforcement. The organization would take years to rebuild. The 8 operators emerged from the underground facility exhausted, but victorious. They had been awake for 48 hours straight, had consumed enough coffee to kill a normal person, had fought a battle that 99.9% of the world would never know about. Oracle addressed her team one final time. What we did here will never be public. The people we saved will never know how close they came to disaster. We won't get medals or recognition. But we know. We know that millions of people are alive right now because of what we did. And that's enough. The debriefing took 3 days. Intelligence agencies wanted to understand every aspect of the operation. What worked, what didn't. What vulnerabilities were exploited, what new techniques were developed. The power plant never publicly acknowledged the incident. Officially, they had routine maintenance and software updates. The Russian government denied any involvement, despite overwhelming evidence. Unit 74,455 was quietly disbanded, its personnel reassigned or arrested. But in the classified world of cyber warfare, the story spread quickly. American cyber operators had gone head-to-head with Russia's best and won decisively. It sent a message to every nation engaged in cyber warfare. Critical infrastructure is off limits. Cross that line and face overwhelming retaliation. These soldiers changed history. Share this story to honor them. Years later, when parts of Operation Cyber Shield were declassified, military academies began studying it as the first true cyber warfare operation conducted at the strategic level. The lessons were profound. Cyber warfare is real warfare. Lives are at stake. The consequences can be as deadly as any conventional or nuclear weapon. Speed matters. The team had to operate faster than their adversaries, making critical decisions in minutes that would normally take hours or days. Offensive and defensive capabilities must work together. Team Alpha couldn't have succeeded without Team Bravo neutralizing the command structure. Human expertise cannot be replaced by automation. Algorithms helped, but it was human insight, creativity, and determination that won the battle. The ethical implications were also debated. Team Bravo had destroyed Unit 7-4455's infrastructure and compromised their operators' identities. Some of those Russian cyber warriors might have faced arrest or worse. Was that justified? Oracle, in a classified testimony to a congressional committee, argued, "They tried to cause a nuclear meltdown. If they had succeeded, hundreds of thousands would have died, millions would have been displaced, an entire region would have been contaminated for generations. We stopped them and ensured they couldn't try again. I sleep well at night knowing what we did." The individual operators went their separate ways after the mission. Some stayed in government service. Others returned to the private sector. One became a professor teaching cybersecurity. Another started a company helping critical infrastructure defend against cyber attacks. But they stayed in touch. Every November 7th, they have a video call. They don't talk about the operation. That's still mostly classified. They just check in. Make sure everyone's doing okay. Remind each other that they were part of something important. Shadow, who built the isolation cage that saved the reactor, later said, "People think of warfare as soldiers with guns. But in the 21st century, warfare is also people at keyboards. What we do is invisible, but it's no less vital. We're defending civilization from threats that most people don't even know exist." Cypher, who led the assault on Unit 7-4455, offered this perspective. "I was a Marine before I became a cyber operator. In the Marines, we trained to close with and destroy the enemy. The tools changed when I moved to cyber, but the mission didn't. We identify threats and we eliminate them. Whether that's with a rifle or a keyboard doesn't matter. What matters is protecting people who can't protect themselves." Wraith, the former Black Hat hacker, reflected on his journey. "I used to hack for fun, for challenge, sometimes for profit. I was good at it, but it was pointless. Then I got caught and recruited. Suddenly my skills had purpose. Suddenly I was using my abilities to protect people instead of exploit them. That mission, stopping that nuclear disaster, that's when I truly understood what I'd become. I was a warrior, just a different kind of warrior." The youngest member of the team, codename Pixel, who had been fresh out of training when Operation Cyber Shield began, later became one of the NSA's top cyber operators. He said, "That mission was trial by fire. I'd trained for scenarios like that, but training and reality are completely different. When you know that millions of lives depend on the code you're writing, when you understand that one mistake means catastrophe, it focuses you like nothing else." I grew up in those 48 hours, became the operator I needed to be. The nuclear power plant that was targeted implemented massive security upgrades after the incident. Air gaps were installed between critical systems and external networks. Advanced intrusion detection was deployed. Personnel received training on cyber threats. The facility became one of the most secure power plants in the world. But the question remained: how close had they really come? If Team Alpha had needed just 2 more hours to complete the isolation cage, would they have had those 2 hours? If Team Bravo hadn't successfully deceived Unit 7-4455 into thinking Chinese hackers were responsible, would the Russians have triggered the meltdown sooner? Oracle was asked this in a classified interview. She paused before answering. We were minutes away, maybe seconds. If any number of small things had gone differently, if Shadow had made one coding error, if Cypher had been slightly slower penetrating their network, if the power plant had experienced that network disruption 10 minutes earlier, we would have failed. Luck played a role, but so did skill, preparation, and determination. We were ready when the moment came. That's what made the difference. The geopolitical implications of Operation Cyber Shield extended far beyond the immediate crisis. Russia realized that the United States had cyber capabilities far more advanced than they'd estimated. China took note and accelerated their own cyber defense programs. NATO established new protocols for responding to cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, and in classified briefings around the world, military leaders began to understand that the next world war might not be fought with tanks and aircraft carriers. It might be fought by operators at keyboards, battling over control of power grids, water systems, financial networks, and nuclear facilities. The 8 operators who saved millions of lives that November never sought recognition. They understood that the most important missions are often the ones that remain secret. That true heroism doesn't require public acknowledgement, but they also understood that their story, even in its classified, limited form, carried an important message. In an interconnected world, cyber warfare is inevitable. Critical infrastructure will be targeted. Lives will be at stake. And the defenders who stand between civilization and chaos deserve the same respect and support as any soldier in any conventional war. Today, cyber warfare continues to escalate. Nation-states probe each other's networks constantly. Criminal organizations launch ransomware attacks. Terrorist groups seek to weaponize digital tools. The battle never ends. But somewhere, in secure facilities around the world, operators sit at keyboards ready to defend. Ready to fight wars that most people will never see. Ready to make split-second decisions that could save millions of lives. They are the invisible warriors, the ones who fight in the shadows of cyberspace, the ones who prevent disasters before they happen, the ones who ensure that our increasingly digital civilization continues to function. And when historians look back at the 21st century, when they analyze the wars fought and the threats defeated, they'll see that some of the most crucial battles were waged not on physical battlefields, but in the endless digital terrain of networks, servers, and code. Operation Cyber Shield, November 7th to 9th, 2020. 8 operators, 48 hours. 1 nuclear disaster prevented. Millions of lives saved. It was the first major cyber warfare operation to be partially declassified. But it won't be the last, because in our modern world, the war never stops. It just moves to new battlegrounds, and the warriors adapt to meet the threat. This is the future of warfare. This is the invisible battle. This is how civilization is defended in the digital age. Subscribe to Untold War Stories, official to discover more forgotten heroes.